Only those who follow no one rule everyone. Nietzsche's shocking truth. What if I told you that the only real leaders in this world are the ones who refuse to follow anyone else? That the people we most admire, the ones who shape history, bend reality and inspire generations, are not those who seek guidance but those who walk alone. Friedrich Nietzsche, the controversial, razor-sharp mind of modern philosophy, once declared that freedom begins not with obedience but with defiance. And today, I want to take you deep into that dangerous idea, but not just as a concept, as a way of life, and as a transformation, as a challenge for your own existence. Because if you're watching this, you're not here for surface-level self-help. You're here because, somewhere inside, you want to break free. You want to stop being a follower. You want to rule not others but yourself. And that may be the only real kind of rule that matters. Let's go back to the beginning. The moment a child is born, they're conditioned. They do this, not that. Say this, not that. Think this, don't think that. Society doesn't raise individuals, it manufactures them. You are not raised to be free. You're raised to be useful. Useful to a system, to a structure, to a hierarchy that's already in place. And the more obedient you are, the more praise you receive. That's the paradox. You are celebrated for fitting in, for following the rules, for not questioning. But Nietzsche asked the question that no one dared to ask. What if obedience is the first lie we are told? What if your entire identity is a collection of borrowed truths? Are you really you, or are you just a reflection of who others told you to be?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Now pause. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you made a decision without seeking approval? Not just from others, but even from your own inner critic, who sounds suspiciously like your parents, your teachers, your culture. When was the last time you did something completely, radically you without apology? Nietzsche's most explosive idea was the concept of the Übermensch, often mistranslated as the Superman, but more accurately, the Overman, the one who overcomes, not just the world but themselves. The Overman does not follow religion, politics, ideology, or even philosophy. He creates his own values. He becomes a law unto himself. And here's the twist. Nietzsche believed that most people would never reach this level. Why? Because it requires killing the deepest part of you, the follower. The one who wants comfort, validation, safety. The seeker of approval must die for the creator of meaning to be born. And that's terrifying, because we're not taught to think like this. We're taught to outsource truth, to look to authorities, books, systems, even influencers. But the second you look outside yourself for permission, you've already surrendered your power. You've already bowed. And yet, look at history. Every person who changed the world was labeled crazy, dangerous, rebellious at first. Socrates was executed. Galileo was condemned. Jesus was crucified. Martin Luther King was assassinated. These weren't followers. These were rule breakers, value creators. They challenged the structure, not because they hated it, but because they saw something higher, something deeper, something more human. And that's the irony. Those who follow no one often end up leading everyone. Not because they seek power, but because they live truth. And truth is magnetic. It pulls people in. It liberates them. But let me ask you something uncomfortable. Are you ready to live that kind of truth? Are you ready to be hated, misunderstood, laughed at, rejected. Because that's the price. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why is not inherited? What if your why is something you carve from the chaos of existence? Can you handle that kind of responsibility to create your own meaning, to stand alone? This is the part most people miss. Freedom isn't fun. It's brutal. It's cold. It's lonely, but it's real. And once you taste it, you can never go back. You become untamed. You stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What must I become?" We live in a time where everyone wants to be seen, but few want to see themselves. Everyone wants to lead, but few want to stand alone. Everyone wants influence, but few want inner power. And this is where Nietzsche's truth hits hardest. Only those who follow no one rule everyone, not by force, but by example, by embodiment, by becoming so radically themselves that others cannot look away. So let's end this first part with a challenge. Look at your life, your beliefs, your routines, and your relationships. Ask yourself, where am I still following? Not consciously, but by default. Where have I outsourced my identity? And more importantly, what part of me needs to die so that something greater can be born? The tyranny of approval, why seeking validation, is the death of your soul. Every time you hesitate before speaking your truth, every time you modify your behavior to fit in, every time you post something online just to get a like or a comment, you are trading a piece of your soul for approval. And the scariest part, you don't even notice it. Because the desire to be accepted is so deeply embedded in us, it feels normal. It feels like survival. But what if I told you that this desire, this addiction to validation, is the very thing that's killing your potential, your authenticity, your freedom? Nietzsche warned us that the masses are gripped by a herd mentality. They don't think for themselves, they absorb the thoughts of the crowd. They don't seek truth, they seek comfort. They don't strive to become individuals, they strive to become more acceptable versions of each other. And the worst part, the herd rewards conformity. It punishes difference. It mocks originality. And so we learn, from a young age, to hide the parts of ourselves that might provoke disapproval. We shrink. We silence ourselves. We become what others want us to be until we forget who we were supposed to become. Ask yourself this: how much of your personality is truly yours? How many of your beliefs would you still hold if no one else agreed with you? How many of your goals are actually your own and not just borrowed dreams, hand-me-down ambitions from your parents, your peers, or your culture? When you chase validation, you become a slave to the external. You give up your inner compass. You become like a leaf in the wind, always reacting to the opinions of others, never rooted in your own essence. And here's the kicker: no amount of approval will ever be enough. Because deep down, you'll always know it wasn't really you they approved of. It was the mask, the edited version, the filtered self. And the more you wear that mask, the more you suffocate the raw, wild, unfiltered self that lives beneath it. Nietzsche believed that the greatest act of courage is to affirm one's own life, one's own values, even in the face of rejection. He called this the will to power, not power over others, but power over yourself. The ability to stand tall in your truth, even when it makes you unpopular. Especially when it makes you unpopular. But let's be honest, that's hard. Because we all want to be loved. We all want to belong. And here's the paradox. You can be loved deeply and authentically, but only when you stop performing. Only when you start showing up as your real self. And yes, some people will walk away. Some people will criticize you. But the ones who stay, they'll love you. Not the version of you that's been softened, polished, or diluted. You. Think about this. Every time you say something you don't mean just to avoid conflict, you are betraying yourself. Every time you stay quiet when your soul is screaming to speak, you're betraying yourself. Every time you agree just to be liked, you shrink a little more. Until one day, there's nothing left but a shell, an echo of who you might have been. So how do we break free from this tyranny of approval? We stop asking for permission. We stop checking the mirror of society to see if we're enough. We start living from the inside out, not the outside in. We choose authenticity over acceptance, truth over popularity, integrity over applause. And here's the deep truth. The people who changed the world were never the most liked. They were the most real. They were willing to be misunderstood, rejected, even hated because they refused to betray themselves. And in doing so, they gave the rest of us permission to do the same. So now I ask you, where in your life are you still chasing approval? Whose opinion are you still afraid of? What part of yourself have you buried just to be accepted? Because until you face that, you'll never be free. You'll never rule your life, you'll always be ruled by others. And remember this, the moment you stop needing validation is the moment you become truly powerful. The Creator's burden, why making your own values is the hardest, most divine act to live without following anyone is not simply rebellion. It's not mindless defiance, it's not ego, it's responsibility. And if you truly grasp what that means, it should terrify you. Because when you reject the values handed down to you by your family, your culture, your religion, your politics, you don't get to live in a vacuum. You don't float in some free for all of chaos. No. When you reject external values, you are forced to create your own. And that act, the act of creating meaning in a meaningless universe, is the greatest burden a human being can carry. Nietzsche didn't just challenge us to stop obeying. He dared us to become gods, not in power, but in creativity. To take the raw, unfiltered chaos of existence and carve something sacred from it. Something personal, be something real. But let's not romanticize this. Creating your own values means there is no one to blame, no one to credit, no one to follow. If you fail, it's on you. If you succeed, it's still on you. There are no excuses, no divine scripts, no commandments etched in stone. You become the author of your own morality. And that's why most people never do it. Because it's easier to inherit a map, even if it leads nowhere, than to venture into the unknown and chart your own course. It's easier to be told what is good, what is evil, what is right, what is wrong, than to wrestle with the chaos and decide it for yourself. Think of the implications. If you no longer believe in the values you were raised with, what do you believe? If you no longer trust tradition, what do you build in its place? If there is no absolute meaning, can you create a meaning that is enough for you? That's what Nietzsche meant when he said, God is dead. He wasn't celebrating atheism. He was mourning the collapse of shared meaning. Because when the old gods die, the burden of meaning doesn't disappear, it falls on you. And most people aren't ready for that. They want freedom. but they don't want the responsibility that comes with it. But here's the deeper truth. You are already creating your values whether you realize it or not. Every time you make a choice, every time you prioritize one thing over another, every time you say yes or no, you are declaring what matters to you. The difference is that most people do it unconsciously. They absorb values from others and call them their own. But to do it consciously, to stare into the abyss of uncertainty and say, I choose this that is divine. And yet, it is also lonely, because when you create your own values, you will almost certainly stand apart from the masses. You will be misunderstood. You will be doubted. You will be mocked. You may even doubt yourself, because there will be no one to reassure you, no crowd to echo your beliefs back at you. It will be you and your reflection and the silence of the universe. And from that silence you must draw your truth. But this is the paradox. In creating your own values, you find something deeper than belonging. You find self-respect. You find alignment. You find peace, not the peace of conformity, but the peace of integrity. The peace of knowing that you are living your life, not someone else's. That your actions reflect your essence, not your conditioning. Imagine living like that. Imagine waking up every day and knowing that your life is yours, that your path is yours, that your values are not borrowed, but built, that every step you take, every decision you make, is rooted in something real, something you chose. That is the burden, and that is the beauty. So I ask you, what values have you inherited without question? Which ones no longer serve you? And what new values are you willing to create, knowing that no one will validate them but you? Because this is the turning point. Once you create your own values, you stop needing to rule others. You stop needing external control. You become sovereign, not over the world, but over yourself. And that is true power. The final test, walking alone without losing your soul. There is a silence that comes after liberation. After you stop following, after you stop seeking approval, after you've burned down the false values you once lived by, there is a space. A terrifying, sacred, infinite space. And in that space you are alone. Not metaphorically, not romantically, truly alone. No guidebook, no crowd, no applause. Just you, your thoughts, your choices, and the responsibility of existing on your own terms. This is the final test. Can you walk your own path without losing your soul? Because it's not enough to rebel. Many rebel, but they do so out of anger, not freedom. They reject old systems but fall into new ones just as quickly. They trade religion for ideology, obedience for ego. But they stop following, but they still crave admiration. They still want to be seen, to be praised, to be right. And so they become trapped again, this time by their own image. But Nietzsche's challenge is deeper. He asks, can you walk alone and not become bitter? Can you create values without becoming a tyrant? Can you live in truth without demanding others follow you? Because the real ruler doesn't need a throne. They don't need followers. They don't even need recognition. Their power is quiet, internal, self-sustaining. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you reach that level of independence, you stop needing to control others, and that's precisely when your presence becomes magnetic. People sense your authenticity. They feel your clarity. You don't lead by force, you lead by being. The world doesn't need more influencers. It needs more individuals. People who live aligned, people who don't perform, people who are free. But there's a cost. You'll lose people. You'll lose comfort. You'll lose the illusion of certainty. And sometimes you'll doubt yourself so deeply that you'll want to crawl back into the safety of the herd. But if you can stay the course, if you can endure the silence, the solitude, the unknown, you'll find something extraordinary on the other side: wholeness. The unshakable knowing that your life is yours, that your soul is intact, that you have not betrayed yourself. So let me leave you with this. The world is built by those who dared to walk alone, not out of pride, but out of necessity. Not because they hated others, but because they could no longer lie to themselves. If you feel that pull, if something inside you is whispering that you were meant for more, listen to it, then follow it. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. And if you have the courage to walk that path, to follow no one, you will not just change yourself. You will become a living mirror that reflects what is possible. And in that reflection, others will find the strength to rise. Only those who follow no one rule everyone. Now ask yourself, are you ready to walk alone?